page. So I'm officially recording right now. Just keep that in mind if you're asking any questions or if you don't want to be heard or anything like that. I am a solo show guy today. So if you have any questions, you have a few options. You can either totally unmute yourself and interrupt me. That's fine. I'm used to that. I'm a New Yorker. Or if you'd like, you can type it in the chat box, but also know that I'm going to try to attend to the chat box as much as I can. You may also hear my sassy diva pet bird in the background. He likes to get squawkalicious if I get excited. So you may hear him. My apologies for that too. So let's talk about beating the April career slump. And I want to start off with the golden rule of career development. And that golden rule is do not compare yourself to others. Now, I know I'm collecting royalties off this golden rule, obviously, right? No, look, I know this is cliche. It's kind of trite to hear, but it's so true. I'm getting in all of my career counseling sessions, well, not all of them, I get students saying, well, you know, my friends are posting on LinkedIn, all the great offers they're getting, and they're sharing about signing on the dotted line, and they're bragging about their amazing salaries and where they're going to be this summer. The truth is, you're only hearing those friends and colleagues because they're excited that they don't have to worry about the job prospects anymore, right? Your journey is unique to you, all right? And if you worried every time that a friend or a colleague or a peer ended up signing an offer, you are going to pull out all your hair and lose your hair like me, all right? Even though I do that voluntarily. So please do not compare yourself to others, especially during a pandemic. These are some weird times we're living in. And just because people are getting vaccinated doesn't mean that the job market is suddenly going to be brilliant in terms of hiring. All right, so you are unique. You write your own story. Also, you know, it's while usually 48% of iSchool graduating seniors have a job before they walk that stage, 52% do not, all right? So the majority of students, especially during a pandemic, don't compare yourself, worry about yourself. I'm gonna even go as far as to say, be selfish. Think about you. Of course you wanna say, oh, congrats to your friend or colleague or whatever, but do not compare yourself to others. It's a great philosophy to start practicing. I did want to start with some market trends and job employment trends because the numbers have been a little surprising. Surprising not in a good way, actually. And while the trends are looking more positive, especially for folks in the information profession itself, I think it's important for students to understand the state of hiring from basically October 2020 to current. All right, and these are all statistics from NACE, which is the National Association of Colleges and Employers. Those are the folks that we work with to make sure that we are understanding the hiring data. So here are the positive trends. I want to start off with the good news. One of the big positive trends we're seeing are full-time new hires for May 2021 is set to surpass the hiring from the 2009 Great Recession. Now you may be thinking, well, what do I care about 2009 Great Recession? Well, many employers were worried that they weren't going to be able to hire in 2021 because they thought that the recession of 2009 and the recession of 2020 were going to mimic themselves. And it's actually not, right? Hiring is surpassing 2008, 2009 territory. So please, if you're graduating this year, don't think like, oh, I'm graduating during a recession. It's actually, the market is improving, especially for information professionals. The second trend I wanted to point out here are that employers will hire 7.2% more, quote, new graduates from the class of 2021 than they did from the class of 2020. Now, overall, 7.2% may not feel like a big, impressive number, but when you think about all of the different industries involved in hiring, whether it's arts and entertainment, whether it's communications, marketing, public relations, you know, childcare, these are sectors, smaller sectors, right, that are going to create a big wave too. And so think about it, if you're an information management technology, library information professional, information management, generically speaking, you have a much more likely chance of getting hired in May this year than if you were graduating this time last year. So bravo to that as well. And then finally, this is the stat I want you all to walk away here with, feeling good that you're at the iSchool. NICE predicts a 65.3% increase in hiring new employees within the information sector. The information sector, you all know this being iSchool students, it ranges from library professionals to information technologists to data scientists and data analysts and sort of everything in between. Engineering can even be associated with information. So that's really great news for the graduating class this year. But also that 65.3% increase also maintains that those are folks who have been in the workforce for a while too. And also don't forget, there are people from 2020 still looking to get hired full-time as well. Now, we went over the positives, but there are plenty of negatives too. And so I wanted to balance this out like the good Libra I am and just go over the negative trends too. Now, increased competition from graduates who are unemployed and or underemployed, right? So those are folks who are either not working or they haven't been hired since May, or maybe they're working at a Dairy Queen or you know, at some sort of retail store that's underemployed, right? So you will have to compete with those graduates. You know, being out of work for a year is typically not really great on the psyche of the applicant, nor does it always look great on a resume. So new graduates may actually, you may have the advantage here. Another negative trend is that employee attrition has decreased. What is employee attrition? So employee attrition is when you have maybe a bunch of people in your organization who are just around the retirement age. They're like my parents' age, right? And so maybe they decide, oh snap, well, because of the economy, because of the pandemic, I'm actually not going to retire now for 2 to 5 years, right? Now, what's that doing? That's decreasing the opportunities that companies can have to open up those new vacancies, right? Because if you have a bunch of older staff members who are teetering on retirement, you're probably already paying them a large sum of money on the payroll. And you can't necessarily afford to open up one vacancy, let alone 3 to 5 vacancies that you may be able to afford to hire if those folks just retired. So people, please tell your parents and grandparents to retire. That will help you. And then finally, and this is kind of an obvious one, hiring budgets for the 2021 fiscal year have been cut dramatically. I don't have a statistic to share with you for that, but generically speaking, across organizations, a lot of the HR functions are being outsourced, right? So not only is there a limited connection there with the folks that they're hiring and the people who are actually doing the hiring, but it also means that they don't have as much money to offer candidates. Now, there are industries that are faring better than others. And I will tell you right now that the best industry to get your foot into, even though I know it doesn't sound sexy and fabulous, is healthcare information management. All right, and that goes from my library professionals on here to maybe get into a healthcare library or a health services library. Also my undergrad students in here, internships, full-time jobs in information technology with hospitals, medical companies, pharmaceuticals, right? You can make a lot of money in pharmaceuticals. So think about the different sectors that maybe you're applying to right now as well. If you're applying to a sector, let's say consulting, for instance, a very popular sector for our students to get hired in, guess what? Consultants aren't actually being hired that amazingly right now. A lot of those consulting firms are waiting to fall 2021 or spring 2022 to do the hiring. So you may want to pivot your the industries you're looking at as well. So again, slower hiring processes and shifting recruitment cycles. With the slashing of hiring budgets, human resources departments have been hollowed out. Guess what? That means your recruitment process is slow as a snail. All right, so hiring managers are now taking up to 2.5 times longer to respond to candidates just after first round interviews, right? And I think about how long sometimes it takes after that first interview in a traditional economy or in a traditional environment for them to reach back out to you just to say thanks, but no thanks, or to say, oh, we're still waiting to hear from it. So try to be patient. I know it's hard to do during, you know, as you're getting ready to graduate, but I also think that this says a lot about about the hiring recruitment cycles as well. So the traditional recruitment cycle and information management, generically speaking, is usually in the springtime between March and July. But guess what? That is way later than traditionally speaking. So students that typically, they've signed their internship offer letters in March, maybe April, guess what? That's being pushed out now to May and June, which is probably why a lot of students are worried that you don't have an internship or a full-time job yet, because it's taking hiring processes much longer and it's happening much later than the traditional recruitment cycle. So the new recruitment cycle looks more like April to October. We're going to extend it out to basically the beginning of the fourth quarter of the economic cycle, business cycle, so be a little bit more patient with yourself. Try to explain to your parents, your friends, your faculty members, look, these are not, quote, normal times. Things are taking a little bit longer. So students, may have gotten their full-time jobs by August or September. Guess what? May not be until September, October, or even November now. So it's going to be a long haul, but I want you to know this going into it so you're not beating yourself up. The impact on internships. So if I have students in here who are interested in internships, this is going to have a pretty bad effect on internships too, right? Number one, full-time hires always occur first. That's why usually, you will see the career fairs really pushing in the fall for full-time offers. We saw that in the spring too, not as much with internships. It's not because those vacancies aren't going to be available necessarily. It's because they need to hire their full-time permanent staff first before they can open up and worry about internships. So since full-time hiring has slowed a little bit, so have the internships. The internship hiring window has shifted to April and June, all right? And I know what you're saying, well, shouldn't my internship start in May? Again, traditional times, you would be starting right around Memorial Day weekend or just right after that, but expect many internships not to begin until following the July 4th holiday. And yeah, that may mean you have to work extra hours now during the week. That may even mean that you have to be, quote, in the office on Fridays for internships. But just be aware of that. So that way you're not, going crazy with that, with internships. More than 60% of internships this summer are set to be virtual as well. So I know everyone's looking for the traditional internship. I know I would want one too if I was in college, but be prepared that at least 60% of those internships are going to be virtual. And then while there are less internship vacancies this year, there are going to be more full-time hire conversions this summer since 2014. So we saw actually a dip in the conversion rate of that employers were making from interns to full-time in 2019 and 2020. So this year, employers have committed, they've told NACE that they're committing to making more full-time offers. So if you get, if you're at wit's end, you're graduating senior, maybe go for that summer internship because that may get transferred into a full-time position. All right, so let's talk about strategies, right? So some of you on this call today may have already had plenty of counseling appointments with me. We've worked on your resume, we've worked on your cover letter. Let's talk about ways to reframe our way of thinking here. So let's start by expanding your career search. I know some of you really want to be in New York or Philly or Boston. I know some of you really want to work maybe in project management or data analytics. But I want you to get comfortable with expanding your searches, right? Expanding, well, okay, I never really gave healthcare IT a thought because it doesn't sound fabulous. But guess what? Maybe now to get that first full-time job, you're going to consider to be more flexible with your criteria for internships or jobs. So use the search filtering tools on LinkedIn and Handshake. The search tools are amazing. I will say that I had kind of a bummer counseling appointment on Friday with a student where I sat on the call with her for like 25 minutes just trying to search on LinkedIn. And I'll be honest, it was tough. There weren't a lot of great things that were really shouting to her or to me, and also in areas of the country that she was just not interested in. Kansas, South Dakota, the suburbs of St. Louis. Look, your first job is not going to be your only job. So it's okay to make a few concessions here or there, or to try to find wiggle room in your criteria. The filtering options are amazing on LinkedIn. Think of entry level or associate level role, check those off. That will nix a lot of the nonsense, those director level roles, or even those manager level roles that sometimes we're not qualified for when we're leaving a master's degree or a bachelor's degree. Internship, there's a great filtered option for internships as well. Try to think about geographic locations you're interested in, right? I know a lot of students like New York, Boston, Philly, but guess what? Austin, Texas has a booming tech market right now. Denver, booming tech market. Madison, Wisconsin, believe it or not, has one of the biggest healthcare IT software companies in the world. Super inexpensive place to live, similar to Syracuse, of course not sunny and shiny all the time. But think about those geographic areas to expand to, especially with younger populations where you may actually have some more fun. And also think about industry. You do have industry filters you can use. Again, I can't keep saying this enough. Healthcare IT is really where the money is right now. Realize the job and internship description is more revealing than the position title. So start getting used to focusing on the job description, not the title. I've seen the least technical students in the last 5 years I've been at the iSchool get roles that are literally software developer, right? Software engineer. And the students are like, yeah, I saw I was software engineer, but I read the job description and it said I needed SQL and I needed Python. I took those as classes, so I was able to leverage that. So please, for my iSchool students on here, read the job descriptions because it's much more revealing to whether or not you're willing to apply to it than just the title or role. Pay attention to the similar jobs function as well. That feature on LinkedIn and Handshake, it's fabulous. You find a position that you're really into, you can save that search, and then multiple other similar positions as they come along will show. I do have to say, I'm not going to throw any haterade at Handshake, but I was talking with my library students and they were saying that they were getting a lot of nonsense roles emailed to them, like, hey, you can be a salesperson at an insurance company. And yes, that's true for my library students. You certainly can do that. That's not something that traditionally you would be looking for in that sector. So I apologize in advance for any weird emails that you may get for positions that you're not necessarily looking for in Handshake. So we did the job search, internship search. Now I want to focus on cover letters. And the reason why I'm going to focus on cover letters is because your cover letter is the letter of introduction to the hiring team. Sorry, my cat's trying to get into the, hi Mo. He's been good all day. Now, of course, he wants to get into my frame. But the cover letter is what they see first. They don't look at your resume first. And so the cover letter is really important in making sure that you're establishing that ethos that's going to get them to want to look at the resume. With the cover letter, I know I'm going to pay a price for this, but it's true. That opening paragraph is the most important paragraph in your cover letter, because that second paragraph where you're talking about all those amazing things that you've done and why they should look at your resume, if they don't get to that paragraph, then that paragraph is meaningless. Thus, the opening paragraph is going to be really important to help you stand out, to get them to realize, oh, this person wrote this cover letter for our hiring team. They call out the company, they call out, you call out the position you're applying for. Okay, you need to get out of here, sorry. And so that opening paragraph is so important. Please don't keep it cliche, dry, and boring. And I know it's annoying because you have to write a different cover letter for every position, but let me tell you, it will be worth it when you start getting interviews. So try your best to hook in your audience immediately. Avoid these things in your cover letter in the opening paragraph. Do not restate your name. Hi, my name is Christopher Perrello. Yeah, they know that. They see that up top with your name and they see it at the bottom in your signature. So don't squander your opportunity to make a great first impression by throwing in your name in the first line. Try to avoid, I am a Syracuse University student, or I am a student at Syracuse University, at least in the opening, right? I know, yes, it's true. We want SU alumni to see that and pick up on it. But for now, leave that out of the opening paragraph unless it's totally relevant. And also try to avoid, I am very interested in, at least in the first sentence, right? Try to use your opening paragraph as a way of really punching the recruiter in the gut and letting them, I know, I'm sorry, I became violent. I didn't mean that. Lightly tapping the hiring manager in the gut and saying, hey, this is the reason why I want to work at your company, right? So instead, try using words or terminology that massages the ego of the organization, right? I was telling one student recently, she was applying for NBC Universal, and I was like, duh, talk about how much you loved NBC growing up and how Friends and Seinfeld and Will and Grace and all those shows are on NBC that you grew up, well, I grew up with those shows, so I'm dating myself, but try your best, even if you have to lie or fib, right? Oh, Bank of America. Yes, Bank of America was a staple in my household growing up. My mom always used Bank of America, right? No, that's not the case, but you may want to do something like that. Another great way to do that is to show your research in the company. And you can simply do that by going to their hiring page, looking at their mission statement, throw some keywords from their mission statement in your cover letter in that opening. They're going to be so impressed and floored. They're going to want to bring you in for an interview. They're going to, well, let me put it this way. They're going to want to look at your resume because that's the key. And also name drop a referral if you have permission to in the opening paragraph. So if you speak with someone at a career fair or a networking night, or maybe someone that you've been meeting with, a recruiter at the company, name drop those people in that opening paragraph. It's a great way to try to get notice, but only do that with their permission, of course. So that's my thing about cover letters. And again, they're super annoying to write, I admit that, but they're so important to try to show that you are really, truly interested in the cover letter or in the position. I have a chat question, so I'm going to go to that. Can you go back to the last? Yes, I can. That is so nice of you. And to just talk a little bit more about cover letters, this is also your writing sample. And I know iSchool students stereotypically aren't passionate about writing, and I get that, but really try your best to artfully construct that first paragraph so that way you're able to establish that credibility with your audience. The next slide, I actually have a sample opening for a cover letter that I'm going to share with you. But before I do that, are there any questions on cover letters? Awesome. Okay. So I have a sample cover letter opening here. It's not perfect. If you've taken any of my webinars or classes, you've seen this before, and I'm not ashamed to reuse it. This is a sample opening in a cover letter for full-time for Fidelity, the company. And I'm just going to go through this real quick. My credo in life is simple: always strive to learn and never give up. This aligns perfectly with the hiring goals of Fidelity, to always hire employees who want a position that cultivates lifelong learning. That is why I feel so passionate about applying for the position of systems analyst in the Jersey City Fidelity branch. Again, not perfect. I hate that semicolon, right? But let's go through this. So the person is starting off by saying something that's really engaging, right, and persuasive. My credo in life, my philosophy in life. And this person may not believe this, but that doesn't matter. Always strive to learn and never give up, which aligns perfectly with the Fidelity hiring goals. This person went to Fidelity's hiring page, and at the top it says, these are the people we hire. And they noticed that they like to engage their new hires in professional development, move them around from place to place, give them some public speaking classes, take an accounting class, so on and so forth. So this student actually made sure that she dropped that in the opening, right? Okay. And then instead of saying, I'm very interested, right? This person saying, that's why I feel so passionate about the position. And also notice that this student put the branch they want to be in, probably because Fidelity is, it's in Nashua, New Hampshire, it's in Boston, it's in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it's in Jersey City. So this student made sure that she put Jersey City in there so that way they would know. All right. Again, not a perfect opening, but way better than my name is, I'm very interested in, I am currently a senior at Syracuse University, right? Oh, hello. Yes, why don't you go over there? There you go. All right, now the resume. Sometimes we focus so much on the resume that we forget that there are other components that matter, like the cover letter. So I'm actually gonna say, if you've worked on your resume and you beat it up, oh, there I go with the violent lexicon again. If I don't know what's going on in my head today. If you really have gone bonkers with working on your resume, step back from it for a week or two, right? And focus on the cover letter and focus on LinkedIn, just to give yourself a break from your resume. But I do want to go over some things that I've been noticing with students on their resumes, which could be eliminating some good attention to begin with. Relevant resumes get noticed. I just created a word last night when I was putting this together to relevantize your resume, right? I know, it's not a word, just made it up. And so the more relevant your resume is, the more likely it is that that resume is going to get noticed. That doesn't mean you need to force a bunch of buzzwords on your resume. But what I am going to tell you to do is to play a simple game of connect the dots with the job ads language and your resume, right? So if they're looking for SQL, make sure you have SQL somewhere on your resume. If they're looking for you to be a member of the American Library Association, then by all means, put that on your resume, all right? But don't oversaturate it, right? There becomes a point where it looks a little too forced and kind of fake, right? Detail is essential, but so is conciseness, right? So a resume is a battle of these two worlds of, I need to be super detailed and give really great examples, but then I need to be quick and concise and brief about it. That's a challenge, right? Don't feel like you need an equal number of bullets. Don't feel like you can't have a 2-line or even a 3-line bullet. That's okay, all right? But be detailed as much as you can in a resume. Try to be quantifiable in your actions and skills. Guesstimation is okay by me, as long as you're not like intentionally trying to obscure numbers or data. But it's fine to say like increased 30%. Just make sure that you are trying to get an accurate ballpark. But on the flip side, I don't want to see a number in every bullet, right? Because then that's just distracting. If it's 35% increase here, 27% here, 13 people, and efficiency by 45 minutes, then you're distracting your audience. So try not to do that. I would suggest if you could do one quantifiable experience skill bullet under every major experience you've had, to me, that's good. That's good enough, especially for an entry-level role or internship. Demonstrate aesthetic ease with your formatting. I see so many resumes that the ones that just look like they hurt your eyes, I need to help that, right? And so try your best to make your resume look appealing, spacious, balanced, consistent. Try not to overdo the text on there, and try not to make your text go all the way to the margins too. That's usually a sign that there's just too much on there. And if you have a hard time removing things, get an appointment with me. I can help you with that. I feel like half my job is just telling students what to take off their resume. Try to have multiple versions of your resume. iSchool students, I know you hate this. You don't have it as easy as your Whitman friends or your engineering friends, where it's very like computer science, accounting, real estate. That's not how we work at iSchool, right? So you may need 2 different resumes, right? You may need a project management resume and then a data analytics resume, or you may need a resume where maybe leadership is flipped because of a particular role you're going for. So it's okay. I know, again, it's annoying and it's a lot to keep track of, but having 2 versions of a similar resume is a really great idea. Finally, before I leave resumes, I want to talk a little bit about the applicant tracking systems, the ATS. I sat in a conference with a hiring manager 2 weeks ago on ATS, and I'm fully going to admit that I felt so stupid that I did not know some of these rules. And so I'm here today to tell you that those applicant tracking systems, usually for the larger companies, and I would even go as far for any of my library students on here to say, I wouldn't, as a library student, I wouldn't worry about an ATS because I feel like that's a more human-centric field where people want to read resumes. So for my iSchool students who are looking to apply at JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, EY, PwC, Facebook, Google, those resumes are going through applicant tracking systems. And there are certain things on your resume that could screw up the output of your resume after it filters through to go to the hiring manager. So avoid underlines, right? Which is annoying because I have a lot of things underlined on my resume. I had to take that off. Not that I'm looking for a job, but just in case. Vertical lines. So those little lines that are, that are just straight up and down that separate things, you're gonna wanna remove that. Italics, horizontal lines, italics, tables, graphs, charts, any of those things, dare I even say a logo, those things could really screw up your resume going through a filtering system. I don't want you to think of this as like, oh, now I have to take off all the fun, interesting things on my resume. No, but just be aware that if you're applying to some of those bigger companies, that they may very well put your resume through an ATS. So be aware of that. And remember that humans still review resumes, right? So sometimes one of those resumes will get spit out of the applicant tracking system, will look like a mess, but if they catch a word on there that looks appealing, then they may still look at your resume. All right, LinkedIn. So look, LinkedIn is really your one-stop shop for making sure that you are proactively seeking out the next opportunity, right? There are really no excuses with LinkedIn these days to not be constantly on the move, trying to make connections, trying to build your network. Take advantage of it. So having your profile completed is one huge hurdle. And also then using the platform and trying to be active on it is a whole nother ballgame. So if you have this fabulous profile, but you're not active on LinkedIn, then it's not going to help you very much. And also along with that, have a professional photo, all right? Try to hit up one of your friends who are in VPA or Newhouse, have them do your headshot if possible. Be strategic with your headline and summary. So often I see actively seeking summer internship, which I get why you're putting that because you are actively seeking a summer internship, but try to use something a little bit more positive or engaging instead of just, I'm desperately trying to find something, I'll take anything, right? Another one that scares me is sophomore at the iSchool studying information technology. Very basic, vanilla, boring, and I like vanilla, but not on LinkedIn, right? Try to ramp up the phrasing you're using to describe what it is that you do, right? Your headline is the first thing that recruiters are going to see under your name. So you're going to want to make sure you play around with that and play to your credibility. So here are some examples of what you can do. Emerging IT professional interested in agile project management. I know that's a lot. You may even be pigeonholing yourself with the agile project management, but that's way more engaging. And I know exactly what you're looking for and what you're becoming. Another good one that I've seen different combinations of: aspiring data scientist, vertical line, Tableau Pro, vertical line, RA, resident advisor, right? So what this person's doing is they're like, yeah, I'm looking to be the next best data scientist. Guess what? I'm amazing at Tableau and I'm an RA. So you're going to get a natural born leader, that sort of thing. So you can have fun with it, right? You could step out of that very conservative traditional framework for explaining who you are. Also, a summary needs to be your textual commercial. Try to be creative here, right? That blurb, right, after your headline, your summary, you want to make sure it's talking about what it is that you do, where it is that you want to go, and what about you makes you stand out from everyone else. If you follow that formula, you're gonna have an amazing summary. By the way, those summaries should be short, quick, to the point. The only students on here who I would say I would allow a long LinkedIn summary would be my library students, because they're in the world of reading. That's good, right? Also try to leverage keywords in your profile to attract visitors of your preference, right? If you're really looking for a data-centric role, make sure you have data all over your LinkedIn profile. That in your stories or anything that you're sharing, pepper it with data stuff, because that's how they're going to find you more easily. And then, like I said, be active on LinkedIn. When you like or comment on something under my posts, then everyone in my network sees your likes and your comments, even though you're not connected with them. And it has the power to be exponentially engaging, right? More and more people can see your likes and your comments. So the more active you are, the more opportunities you may have to get noticed. And that's really the whole point of LinkedIn. When we visited LinkedIn a few years ago at the headquarters, one of my most favorite alumni who works at LinkedIn said, photos and boomerangs often get the most traction, and that the LinkedIn folks have actually built an algorithm to push your photos and your boomerangs more than just a written post or just sharing something like from someone else. So you create original content. I know you folks are way smarter and more creative than me when it comes to social media, so take advantage of that. Yes, a boomerang, Sean. Sean, a boomerang is like an animated image, if that makes sense, where you may see on Instagram or Facebook someone doing like something like moving or turning around, and then they just do that and turn back around, and then that's a boomerang. So if you have that app, take advantage of it. Oh, a GIF, yeah, that too. Sorry. I'm not up on my lingo. I'm sorry. I did not graduate from the iSchool. I wish I did. I'd probably be making more money. So next, how do you leverage your network? So first you want to do is personalize your connection request invitations. Don't ever just send an invitation, just like, you know, like the generic plain, I'd like to connect. No, really try to make each one of your connection requests a special invitation, whether you're recalling a previous meeting where you met that person, or maybe you saw their content online in your LinkedIn feed, even though you're not connected with them. Let them know why you're connecting with them, okay? And I'm also going to say, and I'm only going to say this once, that LinkedIn is not a hookup app, okay? So please do not think that, oh, this person is a pretty attractive person on LinkedIn, let me connect with them and then send them creepy messages. I know no one on here would do that, but I have to say it just for the good of society. I also have an amazing, actually take this out and put this in the chat. It's a really great resource, and I'm not gonna lie, I use this resource, and it is an article with LinkedIn invitation templates. And they're really great. I'm going to put that in the chat if I can find the chat. Take advantage of that. I send it to students when they're like, well, I don't know this person. How do I reach out to them on LinkedIn? Great, great templates. The secret to leveraging your LinkedIn network is by conducting informational interviews, right? And all informational interviews are for you to build rapport with that connection. The best ones to do it with are alumni, recruiters, and I'll talk a little bit about recruiters in a minute, are a little different from alumni. But you know, so it's not just enough just to connect with the person on LinkedIn, but then also to follow up with them. Send them a message saying, hey, I thank you so much for accepting my connection request. You know, I see you work at Deloitte and I'm super interested in applying there. I'd like to get your advice and insight and hear more about your journey. Would you be willing to hop on a 15-minute video call with me? I'm free all next Thursday and Friday. You know, feel free to pick your time, right? If you do that, not everyone's gonna get back to you, right? I'm gonna say that. It's about 50-50 chance. But if you start getting into that habit and that routine, you will start to feel more comfortable and confident about reaching out to these network connections and trying to leverage that. You know, frame it as gaining insight, knowledge, wisdom of the industry and of maybe hiring, their background. That's really important because you don't want to make them feel like, ah, oh, damn, they're going to ask for a referral, right? Or they're going to try to ask me to pass on their resume. Of course, you're going to want them to do that, but not on that first call. And at least if you're trying to pick their brains, insight, advice, it's much less of a threat for them, right? Like, oh, I can talk about my background, right? That's pretty easy. And over time, you continue to cultivate these connections to build rapport. So while that connection that you just met with for a virtual coffee talk to get background and insight and advice, that person may not be able to get you the job right away or even help you out right that minute. But guess what? 5 or 7 years down the line, they may be able to help you. They may reach out to you and say, hey, we got an opening in my department or something like that. Don't be afraid to ask them to look over your resume or to introduce you to other people. That's not selfish. Remember, I told you to be selfish. That's not selfish, right? If you were asking for a referral, then it would be selfish. But what I will say is usually with alumni, once they meet you once and they like you and you're funny and personable and you're yourself on that video chat, they're more likely the next time to reach out to you and say, hey, I can give you a referral, or someone's hiring across departments, I'd be happy to deliver your resume to them or something, right? So think of an informational interview as being your first chance of really building that connection up as well. So what about interviews? And interviews are tough because they're really not in your control either. I want you to know that. One of the things I teach in my interviewing class is that we all say, well, it's up to me, right? I walk into the interview and I can control the narrative, and that's not true. If you get someone in an interview who's a terrible interviewer, that's not your fault. And chances are you're going to suffer because that person doesn't know how to interview. And unfortunately, that's what happens a lot in the business world, right? Especially since, like I said, hiring managers are being cut and hiring departments. But the key to a great interview is practicing. And I know students don't like hearing that. When I have a student come to my office and they're like, oh, I have an interview tomorrow with Microsoft. And I'm like, great, how are you preparing for that? And they say, oh, I'm gonna do great, I can wing it. And I'm like, no, you can't, don't do that. Practice, practice, practice. You know they're gonna already ask you questions about time management, collaboration, values, presentational skills, communication skills, problem solving, they're going to ask you questions on all of those things. So be sure to have solid, concrete answers with descriptive evidence and details that help orient your audience so that they know how amazing you are, because they don't know unless you've actually shared that with them. Try to make your interview responses as relevant to the position as possible, right? I'm also going to say have things prepared for things that aren't on your resume. Sometimes they like asking that. Sometimes it's those simple questions that get you flustered. How do you alleviate stress during your day? Tell me about a time when you failed at something. If your supervisor were here today, what would she or he say about you? Those sort of weird questions are going to come up. Be comfortable with answering those on a whim. Be yourself and be personable. My last interview, I won't say when or with who it was, but it was not with the iSchool. One of the things I did wrong was I wasn't myself. I was trying to put on this air that I'm an executive and I'm this man who knows how to make decisions. Oh, it backfired. I looked like I was just trying too hard and I looked phony and forced. I didn't want the job anyway, to be honest. So be yourself, be personable, because those folks, they're gonna hire you. They're not gonna hire a B-side version of yourself. I see there are some chat. Do you have the link to SU's platform? Oh, thank you. Oh, wow. That was really nice of you for doing that for Chelsea. Thank you. Oh, and interview answers must tell a complete story, right? So for those of us with attention deficit hyperactive disorder, those of us who are really good at being distracted by anything, like myself, try to embody this template, right? So interview answers must tell a complete story. We do this by the STAR method, right? And when you're asked an interview question beforehand, of course, you're going to want to come up with this sort of generic template for answering this question, right? We start with the situation. What was the company? What was the role? Then we move to task. What were you asked to do? What were you tasked with? Then action. What did you do to fulfill that task? What action did you take to complete and succeed or need extra help with that? And finally, the result. Don't ever leave the result off. The result is the final output of that task or of that action. So even if it did not work out in your favor, articulate that and let them know why. The thing about interviews is you don't want them to do all the second guessing. If they have to constantly ask you, oh, tell me more about that, or how did you do that? What did your supervisor think about that? Then you're not being complete with your stories. And so you want, with those narratives, you want to make sure that that the interviewer is in the position where they don't need to ask you any follow-up questions, right? And then finally, like Chelsea was just asking, practice using Big Interview. And Big Interview is a fabulous platform. It's a way for you to try mock interviews, to record yourself, see what you're doing well, see what you're not doing well. You know, if you want to do a mock interview and you want me to look over your answers that you submitted to Big Interview, I've done that before. So feel free to ask me to do that. Sign up for an appointment. I don't mind doing that at all. I do see that there, the invite link. There you go. All right, last big tip. I know this is the crescendo. 80% of success is just showing up. I did not say that. Woody Allen actually said that, but it's so true, right? And by the way, that's not a real statistic. No data scientists actually came up with that. Take advantage of employer information sessions on Handshake. Now, I feel terrible because I don't have the time every Sunday night to go through Handshake to pull out all the employer events. Those employer events aren't just unique to Syracuse. Some of them are all over the country that you have access to. So check those out on Handshake and treat those like networking sessions rather than information sessions. Ask questions, try to connect with the folks after the call, set up an informational interview if you can, but the more you shove your name in employers' faces, the more they're gonna remember you. And the trick to EY, I used to tell students, is you have to go to all their events because they see you, they remember your name. It's harder in a virtual world to show your face, but it's easier to get connected more rapidly. You don't have to be in a particular location at one time. So try to take advantage of those. Showing up to any of these events will help you get noticed, especially if you're the only person who shows up to those events. So in conclusion, do not compare, right? Don't compare. And what I would also throw in there is don't stress yourself out. I know I'm the king of anxiety, queen of anxiety, I guess I could say, but of anxiety. So I've been there and done that. I've been unemployed in a recession before. I know what it's like. But if you're not focused and you're not breathing and treating yourself politely and respectfully and taking care of yourself, that stress is just it's gonna be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So try to stay positive. Trends are looking somewhat optimistic, of course. Go big and bold in the opening of your cover letter. There's the word I made up, relevantize your resume. Try to make it really speak to the role you're looking for. Become active on LinkedIn, and finally conduct informational interviews, especially with alumni. I wanted to say one last thing about recruiters before I get to questions. That a student asked me, oh, I reach out to recruiters and alumni and they're very different the way they respond. And it's true. Recruiters are in the business of hiring great employees. And their numbers, if their numbers aren't good, they don't make money and they get fired and they don't get paid. So their job is to hire as quickly and efficiently as possible the best candidates. So if you're reaching out to a recruiter, your informational interview is going to be much different than if you're reaching out to an alumni. And with the recruiter, you're going to be like straight to the point, let them know, yes, I want to work at your company. What are some application tricks? What are some tips to beating the applicant tracking system? You know, are there any programs, development programs or career services programs that your company offers to folks who are looking to break in? Those are going to be different. And also recruiters are not, no offense, I have plenty of friends and former students who are recruiters. They're not warm and fuzzy. Don't expect the, I'll send your resume through or send it over later, take your time. That's not how it works with recruiters. They don't waste their time and try to be as efficient as possible when you're connecting with them. But they're very valuable because they'll tell you straight up, oh no, sorry, this isn't going to be a good fit, or they'll entertain you and kind of move you along the process. All right. Having said that, I am open for some questions. We've got some time left, so feel free to either unmute yourself and say hi and ask your question, or type it in the chat.
I have a question. So if you applied to say like one company for one position and got denied, is it okay to try and apply for the same company but for a different position that they offer?
Yes, absolutely. It's almost like they expect you to do that, right? You know, sometimes students have even gone into interviews that they've even third round interview, and the recruiter, whoever it is that's interviewing, will say, you know what, I don't think this position is going to work out for you, but there's this position you'd be great for. That actually happens a lot. So Alec, don't ever hesitate to reapply to a different role. If you, I mean, the same role is a little different, I would step back from the same role, but definitely apply for another role in that company.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Alec, and I owe you an email. Don't worry, I'll get back to you. I promise.
Okay.
How often should we reach out to alumni and recruiters? How many should we talk to? Claire, you're going to hate my answer for this, so I apologize in advance. As often as you can, as many as you can. Now, I will say alumni, in my opinion, I'm a little biased because I work with alumni, are much more valuable because they have the Syracuse connection. They may not feel up to donating $1,000 or any money, right? But they are more than willing to help students out. That Syracuse connection is just so, alumni love talking to current students and trying to help them out, or just trying to relive their college years. So I would say as often as possible. I mean, I've had, I was on a call with a student 2 weeks ago, and he's from China, and he was really nervous about, doing informational interviews with alumni. But he had like 3 in 1 week. And he said right after that third call, he just felt so encouraged that he just has like multiple calls a week with multiple alumni. Don't feel like you have to clear your schedule to do that, but you're going to want to try to make those positions or meet those alumni as much as possible. Melissa, I'm an LIS student. Any tips on navigating the New York Civil Service Protocol for public librarianship positions? Oh, Melissa, you stumped me. Oof, okay. What I will say about New York Civil Service is that whenever I had a New York Civil Service question regarding LIS, my go-to person was Jill Hurst-Wall. And I know, and I feel
it's just, I'm sorry, it's such a, anti-proactive system. And, you can get your degree and you can have all this experience and you can put your name and take the test, and you still may never get called for any position. And it's just really dejecting.
Defeating, yes.
It's totally defeating because there's really nothing you can do. You can't, as you could be optimistic, you can, again, be proactive, and none of that helps. And I'm still a ways from graduating, but it's a very defeating system. And so I'm like, I could be really competitive in any other state except here. So, okay. I just was wondering if there's,
I have family members who are civil service, and I remember them getting calls for non-civil service roles that they ended up taking because the civil service had taken so long for them to even get an interview or get a call.
Yeah, I mean, my name had been floated because before I started the program, I just did, because I have public library experience. So I did like the assistant. So my name just languished there. I mean, I scored the right, on the tests, but there were so many people above me that I never got canvassed. It's maddening. So I don't know if I'm taking this program. I don't know if I'll ever have a job in public librarianship, but
you will, Melissa. I promise you that. And I have to give you credit, Melissa, because you were one of the few LIS students who took advantage of the mock interviewing program.
did.
So
And it was wonderful. And my mock interviewee was very positive and complimentary. And so I felt, anyway.
I know.
So.
Melissa, feel free to catch up with me when you're ready. Maybe next year when you're a little bit further in your program, please don't ever hesitate to reach out to me if I can help you with anything. Of course, civil service is not my area, but
no, and I don't think it's anybody's, and that's the hard thing. And so, and again, because I'm on campus, I'm on staff, and so it's taking me longer because I'm using remitted tuition. So
I know the remitted tuition game.
Yeah.
Well,
so all of the people I've started with in the cohort are like graduating now.
I know.
So I've got another year, but I will also be debt free. So I guess there's that. But yeah. So anyway, I've got a little bit, but it's a very defeating and frustrating system when I feel like I'm a very capable and actually
qualified,
good candidate. But anyway,
yeah,
I just thought I'd ask since we were here.
Melissa, all the undergrads right now are like, WT, what the?
I know. I'm sorry, I've stumped everybody.
No, you're
like
good.
Talking in code, but
I like being stumped.
It's maddening, absolutely maddening, because there's nothing I can do to make myself more, I don't know, viable or whatever. So anyway, thank you, Christopher. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Keep in touch, Melissa. Someone asked, are there any Syracuse grants that can help us fund unpaid internships? There are. Actually, if you give me 1 minute, I can find, I'm not sure if they're still taking applications, but I know that we just recently awarded some iSchool students for even paid internships. Now this is recorded, I probably shouldn't have said that, but let me just take 1 minute to find that for you, and I will get that your way for any students. So let me just see. Internship funding award. All right. And basically, if you want to, if you need to talk to anyone about this award, Adam Capozzi, who runs career services out of Central Career Services, he would be fantastic to talk to about this. If anyone has any questions about anything following this presentation, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'm going to put my email address in the chat, so that way if you need anything, let me know. The last thing I just want to say is just be proactive, all right? Be yourself, don't stress yourself out, and don't pay any attention to any other folks. With that, we've reached the end of our session.